Hello, everyone. Welcome back to episode 15 of the Behind Enemy Lines Hockey Podcast. Today's episode, Mon Capitaine. In honor, we're going to discuss the captain comparisons between Nick Suzuki and Austunned Matthews. Should be an exciting one, should be a good conversation, a little bit of trash talking as we go. As always, I want to introduce my friend and co-host, Steve.
Well, it's good to be back on a Sudbury Saturday night, as they say, and it's a big event in Canada. Habs are at home. Nothing better than a first home game back after a road trip, but it is another exciting night because the Toronto Blue Jays are going to piggyback off Montreal again and try and steal our thunder. And the Jays are going for Game 7 World Series lore tonight and hopefully the rest of Canada. Yeah, you got your throwback to the Toronto Blue Jays. I've got the baby blue on, but I've got it a little bit relevant. I've got Expos. So a shout out to Tim Raines and the boys in baby blue. I'll say they wore it first and better. But we'll tie in both, and I've got the Blue Jays chapeau on.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's exciting for a Saturday night, and we're here to talk about captains.
Okay, so on that note, we're going to do a captains related trivia, and there were a hundred different ways we could have went with this one, but you've got a good one for us again today.
Yeah, we'll keep it semi-simple. Captains, we're a storied franchise, so let's just keep it simple. Who was the longest serving captain in Montreal Canadiens history?
Mhm.
Who wore
Okay,
that C number of seasons?
yeah. Um, and with that, we're gonna get on to our Mitch Marner report. Right now, he currently sits with 3 goals, 11 assists, and a plus 18. In the last game they played, I don't remember offhand, but he had a goal and assist in a losing effort. I
For
believe they lost
Colorado.
4-2. But he played a good game, goal and assist. He's still producing.
Well, that's 14 points compared to the other guy that was good enough to stay in Toronto, which does not have 14 points.
No, I think he's got eight actually, five and
Eight,
three or five
yeah,
and four,
eight,
and of
eight
course
with four empty
two
net
empty
points or
netters.
something. Yeah,
So he's really got 3 goals.
it's
Um,
like scoring on your sister. That
yeah.
joke, I know, but
Hey, some parts of where we're from, that happens. You got to be careful.
you got to be careful.
Okay. Uh, Next on our agenda is tonight's game breakdown. As you mentioned, the Leafs or sorry, the Jays are playing, so it's pretty much all eyes across the country right now on Canada's team, the Blue Jays. So we're hoping go go go. But also our beloved Habs are playing against the Senators tonight, which I think everybody's kind of had this one circled on their calendar since the preseason. Um, I think you're going to start us off, Steve, with so many roster announcements.
Yeah, to no surprise, one big change is Sam gets the net on a Saturday night. We spoke about this last week about the road trip, what it meant, who plays, who doesn't play, and why does someone play. You can't go back to Dobish tonight and then as much as we'd want to because he is a hot hand, because then that means Monty's sitting 2 weeks without playing. And you can't do that. You want a guy to break out of a slump, he's got to get his feet wet or frozen and get back on the ice and jump back into it. It's a rivalry game. They're division rivals, right? This is the 4 point game that we talked about earlier. Uh, you know, Outlook on preseason and what the NHL means. This is a big game. So you hope Monty ties his skates on tight, puts them on the right feet, straps the pads on the right legs, and he's got his game face on. And knowing that most of the world will be watching the baseball game, maybe a little bit less pressure on him tonight. Other than that, we were trucking out the same lineups that finished, and again, one little sidebar as you talked about was preseason. There was an ugly slash where Nick Cousins bit off more than he can chew. He just didn't Kiefer Sherwood this. He Marty McSorleyed him in the process.
Yeah.
So that's raised the ire of a guy that we talked about on the last episode.
Mhm.
The importance of the X factor, the Arbor Jackeye effect, and yesterday and today, Arbor has made a statement in the news that sometimes there's a penalty worth taking and there's a score to settle. So he's almost poked the bear. Let's see if that bear runs and hides in his den or he wants to defend his territory.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why I think for me, like most of us, we've been sort of anticipating this game because of the fireworks that happened in the preseason. Um, and I mean, it only adds to the excitement. It only adds to the, energy level. People want to play. And I think for the players too, it adds to their compete level. Like you say, scores maybe need to be settled. Maybe that's done. I don't know. Maybe they're just going to stick to playing hockey right now and let bygones be bygones. But I guess there's really only three or four people who really know what's going to happen.
Well, I'm going to guess that there is going to be a swapping of knuckles tonight. It
Mm,
just won't be Nick Cousins. I'm
mm,
going to suggest that he's not going to do this. After that last game, Arbor Jack guy laid a beating on Zach McEwen, who
mm.
was at that time the heir apparent resident tough guy in Ottawa. And I think it was 2 days after that game, he was traded to New Jersey, and they brought in Curtis McDermott, who is a big tough kid as well. So I'm going to say that somebody else is going to come to Nick's defense tonight because he is not going to be able to do it himself. So,
Mm.
is there a score to settle? Yeah, Arbor's a tough guy and he doesn't back down. He's gonna throw hands where he needs to throw hands, and he'll do it. And if he's on the upside of this one, that Bell Center is gonna it's gonna blow the roof off the place because this is what we like to see the sheriff do.
Yeah, and I believe in that one there was two pretty good scrums, not only Arbor, but I believe Struble got into one and
Yep.
donkeyed a couple guy another guy too.
Yeah. So, and we have Struble in the lineup again tonight. Anderson's
Mm,
in the lineup, and we got a little bit of grit and sandpaper going as well. So,
mm.
if things need to get smoothed out, we've got guys who can definitely take the edge off.
Okay, so what do you got for predictions tonight? Do you want to go down that road? Do you want to do scores?
Yeah, I mean, I think Montreal wins this game. We are playing great hockey. I mean,
Mm.
we came out of a road trip, and just for the record, I will be the one to be the bigger man, and I will say it. I was right. Um, I know, much to the chagrin of the other guy, that 3-1 on a road trip. We played well.
Mm.
We've talked about previous trivia question, longest point streak, Nick Suzuki. He's still going. It's at 10 games now.
Mhm.
Cole Caulfield has now got the most franchise overtime goals by a Hab. He scored his 11th. And from what I understand, there's going to be a little bit of a ceremony for Mr. Caulfield tonight to honor that achievement.
Excellent.
So when we pay tribute to people, it usually gets the 20,000 plus people, 21,000 people in the Bell Center a little bit more amped up, and the rivalry game and the projected fights. So I expect that momentum will carry us into a victory tonight. I'm going to say this is a close game. It's going to be like a 4-2 or 4-3 game. We seem to be stuck on those kind of numbers. So I'm expecting the trend to continue.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think I'm predicting a Montreal win as well. I'm a little nervous of the fact that Monty is playing, but maybe that'll put some fire under the players as well, knowing that, it's terrible to say at a professional level, but I think these guys understand the realities of the goaltending situation, and maybe they know they got to put in a little bit extra effort to help Monty out. I mean, their teammates, they want to see him succeed, not just for their own selfish reasons, but their teammates and friends, they want each other to succeed. But I see a scrappy affair. I see, lots of hits, lots of runs, lots of scrums in front of the nets, and I expect to see one or two big tilts tonight as far as throwing hands.
I would agree. This has the writing for a very, very chippy affair, and we don't shy away from that now. We have a supporting cast. We don't have one, we don't have two, we have three plus guys, because it's not just the fisticuffs, it's the Gallagher's throwing hits. This is a game where you miss the Caden Gooley because he's usually good for a big open ice hit. Struble and Jack I can play aggressive on the back end. So I'm expecting it to be
Mm.
all that plus some.
Yeah,
So,
and
that will come at the expense of a couple of guys like a Kirby Doc probably doesn't see his regular 14 or 16 minutes because we're killing penalties and the game's scrappy. Uh, the duct tape kid just won't be playing.
yeah, you can't afford to take that chance. And uh, Brady Kachuk being out with Ottawa really hurts them in that end too, because whether, you love to hate him, but, you love the type of game he plays, that gritty, in your face type of hockey that Ottawa really could use tonight, and they're not going to have from him.
Right. And, appropriately when we transition into the main part of today's conversation. He's their captain. He
Mhm.
puts that team on his back and he leads in whatever which way he thinks he has to lead because he's a captain.
Mhm.
And he wears a different letter on the front of his shirt than every other guy. And he wants to make sure that his team, first and foremost, is towing the line, good, bad, or indifferent. So if he's up there creating shit, guess what? The rest of the team creates shit with him because that's what he does.
Yeah.
Again, love him or hate him, that's just his role.
Yeah. And on that note, that gives us a nice little tie into today's topic. Uh, Many years ago, a poet named Walt Whitman, back in 1865, wrote a poem, "O Captain, My Captain." I think that applies here today. I don't think he's the greatest captain we ever had, but potentially, he's got the potential to go there. Let's compare some captains here.
Right. So, we are behind the enemy lines and we will support our captain. What does a captain mean? What does he do? What's his role? And how do you measure his impact? If we're measuring the two captains, Austunned Matthews and Nick Suzuki, if we're measuring it on goals scored, Austunned Matthews scores more goals, but that doesn't make him a better captain.
Mhm.
What does one captain do? Nick has been a player who has worn a letter throughout his junior career. He was an assistant captain in Owen Sound. I know when the OHL did their prospects game, he wore an assistant captain letter in that game as well, or an associate captain. And he was tabbed into that role when he became a Montreal Canadian in the trade.
Mhm.
And he's 4 years into this, and some would argue he's been every bit of the captain he was groomed to be.
Mhm.
We talked about this an episode or two ago. The Shea Weber trade shook the foundation. He became a captain, was a good captain, brought in a culture. That culture created an environment where people wanted to be. And when Shea Weber put on the captain's jersey, he represented our franchise with the utmost amount of respect because he understood what it meant to have that captain's C on his jersey in a storied franchise.
Mhm.
And even right up until the end of the Stanley Cup against Tampa Bay, him and teammate Carey Price played hurt. They sacrificed basically the tail ends of their careers playing hurt to try and provide the biggest boost of energy and gamesmanship to lead the rest of the team to a Stanley
Mhm.
Cup victory.
Mhm.
Sadly, on two fronts, we didn't win, and both players basically retired due to injuries.
Mhm.
But there's a captain leading by example. If I'm going to war, you're coming with me. And I think we have that same type of captain.
Yeah. And we'll get right into, I'm here on the Hockey DB website, which hockeydb.com, for those of you that don't know it, it's a great statistical resource for anybody who wants to do, basically what we're doing, or you just want to look up your favorite players and see what they're doing. It has pretty much everything with their career. As of right now, Austin Matthews has played 640 games, has 406 goals, 329 assists for 735 points. So he's better than a point. I think he's 1.2 points per game. He's over the 1 point per game. Right now, Nick Suzuki, 466 games with 140 goals, 251 points for 391, and he's just below the point per game stat. Um, as far as plus minus goes, that's a number that I believe you can use as a stat, but it's kind of dependent on the team you're on too. And Nick Suzuki has been on some pretty horrible Montreal Canadiens teams. Austin Matthews, I will admit, has been on a much better Maple Leafs roster, who still didn't win, so it don't matter. Um, so is Austin Matthews a better captain, or is Nick Suzuki a better captain? I mean, I have my own personal views on it as far as who they are. Um, but you got to remember one thing. Austin Matthews was given the captaincy because they stole it away from your best buddy there, Pajama Boy, and gave it to him. And I think they done him dirty. I think that was a horrible thing to do. And that might have been the beginning of the end for them.
Yeah, and you're not wrong. I mean, you had a franchise. The Toronto Make Me Laughs will do that. They'll make you laugh because
Mhm.
some of their decisions are questionable. Because you want someone that's going to lead and drag you in and make you believe. Do I believe that guy was John Tavares? He was for 6 years prior to.
Yeah.
So as long as he's still in uniform and he's still part of your major core of players, why take that away from him?
Mhm.
Now, you can believe the Toronto media or not, but there was some dissension. I believe that was close enough around the time where Matthews was due a contract extension. Am I suggesting that he made a comment that this was his franchise and he was the face of the franchise, and John Tavares diplomatically gave him the captaincy?
Mhm.
That's the way it appeared to be. If you remember that press conference, JT was there and his kids were there, and they're all wearing Matthews jerseys with the C on it, and John Tavares did the right thing. I don't know that it was the right thing. I will emphatically say it wasn't the right thing,
Mhm.
but for different reasons. When you want your captain to be your captain, does it have to be the best player on your team? Does it have to be the guy that gets the most amount of points? We have a storied history of captains. This is what this is all about.
Mhm.
We've had 31 captains in our 100-plus-year history. Two captains, Mike Keane and Pierre Turgeon, were only captains for part of a season. Why? Trades, but they were put into a role. Pierre Turgeon, 100-point season. He was an offensively gifted player. Mike Keane was not that offensively gifted player. Mike Keane was your lunch pail work boot, go out and just get the job done kind of guy. Gained a different respect.
Mhm.
Tell me in Toronto, other than getting caught in Scottsdale, Arizona, flashing a security guard your underwear, tell me what prominent thing that Austunned Matthews has really done for not just the city of Toronto, but the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Well, there's really nothing. I mean, I tell this, and I have arguments, discussions with all my friends who are Leafs fans, and talk about how good a player Austin Matthews is or isn't, whatever. And listen, I will give credit where credit is due. That guy can score goals and buckets. He's got a shot. There's not too many people can shoot the puck like he can. But I think he's truly a one-way player. He is a goal scorer, and that's it. I don't think he brings anything else. He's not the guy. And again, I'm going to go back to Mitch Marner. What made Mitch Marner great was Mitch Marner made the players around him better. Austin Matthews does not do that. If Austin Matthews is not the center of attention, he's not the same player. And to me, that's not captain material. If you look over his career, like as a NHL player or even in junior, what like his equivalent, which would be the U.S. National program, he's never won anything, never won any team championships, team awards. It's all been individual accolades. And I would rather have somebody like Suzuki, who has won with Guelph, won the Memorial Cup, has won all kinds of stuff, as a team player, right? So I think Nick Suzuki is maybe not the goal scorer that Austin Matthews is, but he's a way better leader than Austin Matthews is.
Yeah, and we talked about what makes you a good captain. And again, I'll backtrack a little bit to what you said about Mitch Marner. Mitch Marner made the players around him better. If you look this year, Pavel Dorofeyev has 7 or 8 goals for Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Matthews has 5,
Mm-hmm.
two of them into an empty net,
Three. It's
three
got
into an
three
empty
goals.
net.
Yeah.
So the common denominator there is Mitch Marner.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean Mitch was the captain? No, Mitch is not captain material, but I don't think Mitch has to be the captain. Mitch
No.
just wants his just desserts and his due respect.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then on the other side, we have, Nick Suzuki. He is the youngest captain in Montreal Canadiens history. Was he groomed into that role? He was the consummate gentlemanly player playing junior hockey, 6, 8 penalty minutes a year. Again, we talked about his work ethic. He comes into the game, he treats the game the right way. Many people would have called him the poor man's version of Patrice Bergeron, and that's a compliment, folks. That's not a negative connotation towards him, because Patrice Bergeron was a great captain for the Bruins. He epitomized what you needed to do. He had the respect of his teammates, and Nick Suzuki has followed in exactly those footsteps.
Mm-hmm.
And we mentioned this before. We'll dredge it up one more time. He went to management last year and said, "Do not change this team.
Yeah.
We will do this." And if that isn't the epitome of why he should be a captain and what makes him good,
Mhm.
he did exactly what he told the franchise bosses essentially that he was going to do.
Yeah.
He had the backs of all the guys that wore the same thing on the front, and they managed to pull it together and get to the playoffs. Again, lack of play success in that year, but he got them there.
Yeah. And I think the important thing in that, like you said, it's not only that he said it, but he did it. He lived up to his words. And I mean, we all know about I think back in 94 when Messier pretty much said, "Hey, we're going to win this." You know, when he was
I
with the
guarantee
Rangers,
we're going to win this. Yeah.
with the Rangers, he's basically telling people, "Relax. We got this." And he did it. That's what makes captains great is not the fact that they can, to use a baseball analogy, they can call their shots, but they can call it and they can back it up, which means they do whatever it takes. Play hurt, play the game they don't necessarily maybe want to play, but they do whatever it takes to win. And that's a leadership. That's You don't have to score 50 goals to be a leader, but you have to be that guy to set the example. Because I'll tell you right now, Nick Suzuki, if he walked into that dressing room right now, and again, to use an analogy from another movie, there was a Ben Affleck movie and Jeremy Renner where he walked into the thing and he says, "Hey, we're going to go somewhere. We're going to do some bad stuff and we can never talk about it." You know what I mean? These guys they're not asking what's going on. They're asking, okay, whose car are we taking, right?
Yeah,
They would walk through a pile of lava for that guy.
and then somebody else is going to immediately fight with the other 8 guys and say I'm riding shotgun,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the environment that they've created. That culture only proves that your captain is the right guy.
Yeah.
He's not out there running his mouth. But he's out there blocking shots. It's not about scoring goals. He does his fair share of that. He took a lot of criticism last year, Captain Nick, about not scoring, and he only had 4 goals for the first 12 games or something. He's got 3 this year.
Mm-hmm.
But should we be concerned that he's in the top 5 in scoring with only 3 goals? No, we shouldn't be concerned about it, because he is leading in many different ways. His face-off percentages are getting slightly better. They're not marginally better, but they're slightly better. He's out there taking the important face-offs. He's usually playing against the other team's top checking line most nights, yet he still finds a way to lead this team to the promised land. And he's dragged the belief and instilled those values in the younger players. So moving forward, that's what you want. You want that guy to lead you somewhere. And again, we'll talk about some other things. What does your captain do? Your captain gets you past the second round of the playoffs, right? Like that
That's
number is
touching a
important.
nerve.
That well, it's touching a nerve, but I guess Austunned Matthews is going to be happy just to make the playoffs maybe this
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
And for those keeping score at home, the Maple Leafs today are in last place in the Atlantic Division,
Yeah.
which is a great statistic in itself. But Nick wants team success, and when you want team success more than you want individual success, that tells you that you've got the right guy leading.
Yeah, and
You know,
if you look at, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I mean, I guess I do, but if you look at the Toronto stats overall as a whole, and again, I'm not, as much as I love trashing Austunned Matthews because I think he's a worthless bag of hammers. Um, he's got 5 goals, 3 assists, like you said. 2 of them goals were empty netters. So for argument's sake, he's got 6 points. You got guys like Willie Nylander, 15 points, John Tavares, 14 points, and even Matthew Knies, in essence, their rookie, he's got 14 points as well. So, I mean, that right there to me is, again, that's the Mitch Marner effect. He doesn't have his buddy riding shotgun with him. And you and I both said it from day one that they never replaced Mitch Marner's assists. So, if Austunned Matthews was the player that people claim he is, or the leader that he is, he'd still be getting the points. Having said that, I don't think and you just said you don't have to be the best point getter to be the captain. I mean, to me, in my personal opinion, the greatest captain that Montreal ever had was Bob Gainey. He never ever led the team in scoring, but he did his leading the other ways, right? So, like I said, I don't think you need to be the point getter, but I do think you need to help the players around you be better. And Austunned Matthews does not do that for me at all.
no, and let's talk about another thing, the difference in those two captains. One guy's making 13.8 million and the
Mhm.
other guy's making 8 million.
Yeah, that's a big factor. I think people overlook.
Right. One guy said, as we're quoting movies, "Show me the money," and he just stood there, and it's just fanning him out.
Yeah,
And the other guy said, "I want all my teammates to have some money," and he
yeah.
signed a much better deal. So, why is that important in a salary cap era? Nick Suzuki signs for 8 million. Caulfield extends for 8 million. They sign a young Slavkovsky to 8 million. They
Mhm.
trade and get Dobson. He's in around the 9.5 million. You just re-signed Hudson in the 8 million.
Mhm.
You see a theme here.
Mhm.
They're all saying this guy's willing to pay, get paid X amount of dollars to play here.
Mhm.
We all buy in.
Mhm.
That's a mentality. That's a culture. That's a leading by example. And I don't think Nick would have went back to the dressing room crying with his tail between the legs if the other guys got more money.
Mhm.
But he knows that he signed for the money to give this team a chance because he could have
Mhm.
got more. You know,
Yeah, and
he went from a guy being left off the Four Nations Cup roster
mhm.
to now it's almost and there's no guarantees in life, folks, but
Mhm.
it's almost a guarantee he's going to make the Olympic roster
Yeah.
because he's off to a torrid start. And that's what captains do. They elevate their game. Now, the other guy will jump back and forth.
Well,
He
can I
was the
just interject
captain.
something here real quick?
Sure.
Sorry, before you get onto that, you were talking about salaries and salary cap issues. And again, I'm gonna have to start writing this stuff down, but I watched it might have been on the Sick podcast, one of these other podcasts, or one of the TSN hockey show. They had talked about the Dobson sign and trade, is what it was from the Islanders. Apparently, they discussed with Suzuki the possibility of getting this player, and that you know, they could get him, but they were going to have to sign him for more money. And Suzuki, in not so many words, okayed it because they wanted Suzuki to be the highest paid player, and he pretty much said, "Look, I don't need to be the highest paid player." He goes, "I'm here, and I want you to build the best team you can. If that means I'm taking eight, and a bunch of other guys are taking less, and you got to pay that guy more than me, I don't care. Let's just build a winner. Let's get a winning culture." Which again, sorry, and again, I cut you off, I know, but that goes to that leadership winning mentality that they're building here in Montreal.
Right, but that follows in line of another guy, and we might call him by the time he's all done his career one of the best captains in the history of the game. Sidney Crosby is that
Mhm.
way in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Here's a guy that's captain almost every level he's ever played at. And when he signed his first big money deal in Pittsburgh, he signed it for, you know, 8.7 million. And Malkin and Letang and they all signed Jordan Stahl, Marc Andre Fleury, they all signed for in around the same money,
Mhm.
trying to build the core. And that won them some cups.
Mhm.
At some point it cost you players
Mhm.
because you can't keep trucking out the same lineups year after year after year because it's success or fail.
Mhm.
It's either success at the highest level where you win the Stanley Cup or failure when you don't, or is it success being in the playoffs every year and being competitive every year? That's a different level of success, with the ultimate success being the Stanley Cup.
Mhm.
They run into a crossroads where they've got rid of Marc Andre Fleury. Matt Murray was their backup who took his job. He's gone. Malkin is still there. Letang is still there. Then they bring in Erik Karlsson, another big money guy. At some point, and we can have this debate on another episode down the road. And if you guys want to hear it, we're up to I think 15 subscribers now, so we're growing by a couple every week.
17.
17, so we've
Yeah.
gained four. We've gained 25% in 1 week. So good job, guys.
Yeah.
But we can talk fantasies. Who would you like to see moving forward on this roster? If you were the GM tomorrow, what player would you like to see? If you could add one player to this lineup, who would it be and at what expense? And we're not talking trading Connor McDavid for Michael Pezzetta, and this
Yeah,
isn't
it's
EA.
got to be it's got to be realistic, educated hockey, not the typical Toronto fantasy land. Oh, Toronto's getting McDavid for Colton Orr. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
you got to be realistic. We're not even going to entertain
but
ideas that don't even make sense.
we can do that, and that would be a lot of fun in its
Mhm.
own right. Make us better with who,
Mhm.
um, but we've got the right tools in place, and again, Montreal's following that Pittsburgh mentality.
Mm,
The captain gets X amount of dollars. Most people are towing in behind that, and they understand that. They're not. They could. Lane Hudson could have got way more money, and
mm,
he settled in for what he thought was fair market for him for his 8 years.
yeah.
So you don't get that if the captain's greedy, everyone's going to be greedy, and we've seen it in Toronto.
Mm,
And again, jump back to the other guy, captain of the Four Nations Cup. Where was he when all this brouhaha was going on the ice? Well,
mm,
I know where he was. He was laying on the bench in the fetal position,
yeah.
rocking back and forth behind the coaches, saying, "Don't put me out there."
Yeah.
Because someone would have scuffed up that porn stash of his, and then
Yeah.
we would have really saw when his helmet popped off that he is the illegitimate love child of Ron Jeremy.
Yeah.
That would not have gone well.
Yeah. Yeah. And it just kind of reinforces many different things that, again, he's not the guy that the players are going to go to battle for. He's not that guy that's going to show up and say, "Hey, we're going to do some bad stuff here. Let's go." Right? Because they know he's not the guy that's going to be, he's not going to be the tip of the sword, as they say. He's going to be the guy that's hanging around in the back end of the sword waiting for everybody else to do the dirty work. And, you know, listen, I've been in scrapes in my life where I was the tip of the sword. Me and a few friends were the tip of the sword. And when all was said and done, the guy who started it was, curled up inside the bar, looking at us. What? That guy got shunned out pretty quickly. And real life in hockey is the same way. If you're not going to be the first one into battle, don't expect the guys to come running behind you.
Right. And I don't think Nick's going to go dropping the gloves, but he's on the ice, he grabs his guy.
Mhm.
He's not doing
Yeah.
that. And again, you can beat this up till you're blue in the face. One guy brings one level of respect, another guy brings another level of respect.
Mhm.
Do I think that the players respect Austin Matthews? To some degree, they do,
Mhm.
but there is obviously dissension in one locker room, and there's not dissension in another.
Yeah.
And that starts with the guy who wears the C.
Mhm.
Because he is, for all intents and purposes, he is the face of the franchise at that point,
Mhm.
because he's the one that the coaches talk to. He's the one that they got to bounce things off of. Some guys will be the first one to say, "This isn't going well. We have this problem." I just don't see Austin Matthews saying it. And I hope one day I can be proven wrong, because he's been a good player for the game. I'm not saying he's not. You touched base on it before. He has probably the most NHL ready, quick release shots in the game. You give him the puck and give him a sliver of the net, he can score. We have a young kid that wears 1-3 that pretty good as well, and another guy that wears 92 that can shoot the puck. They're both shooters, but Matthews he can find the net real quick, and
Mhm.
he's burned us on a number of occasions. So you got to give your credit where it is, and he'll do that. But I just don't see the same buy-in, the same sacrifice, the same every year. He should be the first guy throwing a fit like McDavid did when the Leafs lose in the playoffs, that this isn't good enough. But you don't see it. He's somber. He sits there. He finds excuses, and we just didn't get the bounce. And oh yeah, bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. Right? Easy to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. And again, like it's like with the comparisons, you can't. Maybe it's an apples and oranges thing too, right? Because they're different type of players. Like Austin Matthews is one type of player. Nick Suzuki, as we know, is a different caliber, different makeup, different mentality, even. So as far as basically what our topic here tonight is who's the better captain? I don't even think they're in the same stratosphere as far as who should be captain or who's a better captain. I think Nick Suzuki outclasses him all day long, every day of the week.
Yeah, and I'd be hard pressed that if you pose this question to the remaining 30 NHL general managers, obviously excluding the two teams where players are involved, Toronto, Montreal, I'm going to guess it's probably going to be 26 or 27 would pick Nick Suzuki. There
Mm,
would be one or two that would pick Austin Matthews, and maybe they have personal ties to the player or the family or whatnot. But I'm gonna say that if you look at the complete body of work, what does this player do for me in our franchise? Nick Suzuki by far is a better captain,
mhm.
and it's not a bias. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, wearing the shirt.
Yeah,
I just think that captain gets more out of his foot soldiers than the other one does.
yeah. And that kind of leads us to, if you look ahead in the schedule, I just had it up here. Um, our next game against them is November 22nd. Uh, I believe it's a Saturday night game. Um,
3 weeks today.
yeah, so it kind of gives you something to anticipate to look forward to. 3 weeks from now, like you mentioned, Montreal's in first in our division, Toronto's in last. Again, very early samples.
And those numbers could flip flop real quick.
They
That's
could
I
flip
think there's
flop
five
quick.
points.
Yeah, for only 5 points in difference. I believe they've played the same number of games, so you can't really. I mean, although it can be an indicator, it might not necessarily be a telltale sign. But by November 22nd, I think you're going to have some harder numbers that you can really start to take a serious look at because by then you'll be getting close to the 20 game mark, which is
Right.
which is a better benchmark. And I know we talked about doing a 20 game episode as
Comparison, yeah.
well. So maybe that's what we'll shoot for on that Saturday. Maybe we'll do a season update episode with that one and see where we're at. And I think leadership is a big part of that. If Austunned Matthews hasn't turned on the Jets because, he could come out now in the next 2 weeks and get 12 goals. I mean, it's possible. I don't see it happening, but it's
And I
possible.
hope I hope most of them are in his own net, but I mean we can hope.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bounce off a leg or off his helmet and go in his own net and
Mhm.
whatnot. But yeah, I mean it's early days. But you want an opinion. You know,
Mhm.
opinions are like assholes. We all got one.
Mhm.
I think Suzuki is a better captain than Austin Matthews.
So before we go into final thoughts, I'm just going to bring up here. I know I do this to you every once in a while, throw a little bit of a sort of semi on topic, off topic twist at you. As it stands right now, as we're all aware, Suzuki and Caulfield, they're the guys right now. Suzuki's our leader. They're our points guys and all that other stuff. But as we've talked about also, man, we have a lot of high quality, high crop of young players coming. Demidov is here, Kapanen is here, but we've got Hage coming, we've got Zorowski coming, we've got a lot of guys that are coming that Montreal is in a window, I don't want to say a contending window, but they're in a playoff window. I think we're 2 or 3 years yet from being the serious contender where, we're leading the conference or even leading the league in points. There's could be a transition where Caulfield and Suzuki aren't the guys. We could have moved on to Demidov, Kapanen, Hage, whoever, you know what I mean? And I think part of what makes Suzuki a good captain is I think he's quite okay to have that transition.
Yeah, he's the type of player that he's always been gracious in just being the best player he can be. His teammates will make him better because the reputation that he gets from that is exactly what he's aiming for. He
Mhm.
just wants to win, and that comes at nobody's expense except his own. Because if everybody else is doing better and they're winning, then he's part of that.
Mhm.
And that's what you want your captain to do. You want your captain to be the best player they can be, sharing the excitement and the awards of others. And let's be honest, there's a chance that if Caulfield keeps up this pace, he could be in the Rocket Richard nomination, or it's not a nomination, but he could be in that discussion come end of the year.
Mhm.
You don't think that Suzuki won't be looking to feed him the puck more so he gets his own personal accolades? Sure, he would.
Yeah.
But they can do both. He can get his assists, the team can get wins, and Cole can get his goals. So I think we're in great hands with the crop we have and the new crop coming.
Yeah. So on that, we're going to continue and we're going to go right into our final thoughts. Um, and I might as well let you keep going. You're on a pretty good roll there. What do you got for final thoughts on the topic?
Well, final thoughts. I mean, we'll dive into this you know, a little bit later down the road. This might be a year or 2 years from now. I think when all said and done, Nick Suzuki will go down in history as our longest serving captain. If he serves out the remainder of his captaincy, the remainder of his contract as captain, he will pass our trivia answer tonight
Mhm.
because he's already been there 4 years, and there's no
Wow.
reason that he wouldn't get another. He's already been a captain for 4 years, and there's no reason to think that he won't get a contract extension and still be the captain.
Yeah.
So we've had some gentlemanly players that have been captains long past their prime, but they get the most out of their players, and I suspect that come the end of his career, he will be the updated answer to tonight's trivia question.
Yeah, I would agree, and it kind of just sort of got my attention a little bit there when you had said that he's already been the captain for 4 years. That kind of surprised me a little bit because that 4 years has flown by fast. I would have said 2 years. You know what I mean? It just makes you think of how much the guy's given to the team already, and maybe you don't realize how much he's given, but done it successfully. And as far as the final thoughts, again, if you look over Nick Suzuki's career and Austunned Matthews' career, there's nothing in their history or their stats that tells me that Austunned Matthews is the team player, has never won a team championship anywhere. Sure, he's got buckets of individual awards, right? But you look at Suzuki. Suzuki has won team championships. Suzuki has done things on the team aspect, like you say, the logo on the front, not the name on the back. So to me, it's not even, and I don't even think I'm being, well, he's being Montreal biased. Like you said, I think you had said 26 players or 20, if you asked 26 teams who they would rather have, I think you were lowballing it. I think as far as a captain goes, I think there would be more would say that Suzuki is the leader than Austunned Matthews is.
And again, I'm being conservative. I think 26 out of 30 is probably the number, but it could be all 30
Mhm.
because his body of work shows it. But
Yeah.
next, our guy, Captain, oh Captain, we got a good one.
Yeah. So that takes us right into today's trivia question. The answer is
Well, we have two, believe it or not, and two both were fantastic captains in our organization.
Mhm.
If you guessed it, it was 10 years. It was Jean Beliveau and Saku Koivu.
Mhm.
Both were captains for 10 seasons.
Yeah. And Koivu, even with going through his Hodgkins and all that stuff, and was still the guy, still, the players still followed him, and he did what it took to win.
Yeah, he came to the rink, bald head and all, come on the ice for ceremonies. We've all seen that. We've all seen that in the pregame,
Mhm.
and he's just done everything the right way. Sadly, we chose to go a different direction, and he finished his last couple of years in Anaheim. But that's a business decision. It's not a reflection at that point. He
Mhm.
wanted more money and wanted to keep playing, and good for him.
That's
But
just the game.
two, yeah, that's the game. Two very, very, very good and gracious captains, and again, when I'm talking 10 years, I think Suzuki passes a pair of them.
Yeah, and I think another thing that I forgot to mention too, I think Beliveau still captains the team in a certain way, even though he's passed on. There is nothing more exciting, and I hear all the players talk about it. I hear Martin St. Louis talk about it. I hear universally the media, everybody talks about how much they love to see Madame Beliveau in the building
Yeah,
because you know what I mean? His presence is there, still leading the way, even, not to get all crazy and goofy, but beyond the grave, he's still leading this team with her being there.
yeah, he was a true ambassador to our franchise on and off the ice, and Nick is doing the same thing. So he's
Yeah.
picked a good guy to follow in the footsteps of, that's for sure.
Yeah. So with that, we're gonna sign off on today's episode. Again, we're just getting ready now. We're only a couple hours away, well, 1 hour away, I guess, from puck drop, and 2 hours away from first pitch
No,
for
I
the Blue
think
Jays game.
first pitch is at 7, I believe, tonight. So we have a conflict.
Oh, is it? Oh, well, that
Yes,
changed.
sir.
I thought it was 8 o'clock.
So there will be another sport going on in my house tonight. There'll be surfing. It'll just be channels because we got to keep dibs on both sports tonight for different reasons.
Yeah, no, it's 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock first pitch.
Okay,
It
eight
is eight
o'clock
o'clock.
first
So,
pitch. Okay,
so you
so
can get the first period of hockey without having to channel surf, and then we'll switch over and get the baseball game, and then just sort of keep the hockey game on your tablet next to it.
there you go.
So, anyways, on that note, go Jays, go! Let's have a good game from the Habs tonight. It should be exciting in Ottawa with the Senators playing. Again, as always, like, share, subscribe, comment. Like I said, we're up to 17 subscribers now. Let's get the push on for 20. And let's just keep heading up and get better and better. We're getting a lot more views on our episodes as well. I know this the Arbor Jackeye one seems to be a hit. Everybody likes to see that and comment and talk about that. So have a look if you haven't had a look at that one yet. And as always, thanks for watching. And as
And
Steve says,
keep your stick on the ice.